This is the Live Well and Thrive podcast, hosted by Michael Torsha, health and wellness expert. It's time to shape up, America.
Hi, this is Mike Torsha, and welcome to Live Well and Thrive. I have a very special guest, Michele Kanan. You'll know her name because she's married to Sean Kanan from Karate Kid 3 and Cobra Kai, and he's got multiple books out. He's a producer. He's on soap operas. But this episode is about Michele's life and her accomplishments. She's an Emmy Award-winning producer, writer, fundraiser, a mom of what, you said 4 girls?
We have 5 kids. Yeah.
Oh, 5 kids,
Yep.
but 4 girls.
Yeah.
And married for 15 years.
Yep.
Wow. You
Yeah.
got to share. What's your secret?
Sean. Honestly, Sean. When I first met Sean, it was actually the day that I separated from my ex-husband. And so I had 4 kids, and I had been a fundraiser. I was his nurse. I was living in a tiny town, carpooling to ballet, and that was my life. I was a fundraiser, and I had this quiet, happy life. But it crashed. And so that day I was like, I got to do something different. And it had kind of been coming for a minute, because I was a PTA mom, and I was sitting with my PTA moms, and I just had this feeling like I don't belong here. I fit in, and everybody likes me, and I like everybody, and I get along, but I just had this feeling like there's another life out there that I'm supposed to be living. And this one's important, but I just feel like I don't get it. And one day, I don't know, maybe it was liquid courage, but I said to everyone, if money was no object, you could do whatever you want for 24 hours, what would you do? And one of the ladies was like, I'll redo my kitchen. And I was like, no, but money's no object. And she's like, oh, okay, I'll do my bathroom too.
Oh, my God.
And I was like,
typical.
what am I doing here? So that night, when I do my best thinking, because it's the only time when you're a mom and you have 4 kids at home, the only time you get to yourself is in the middle of the night when they're asleep. And hopefully not with a cold, because they come. So I sat there and I was like, what am I doing? What is this life? It's important. My kids are great. I'm making a difference. In my community, I was on the Tobacco Free Coalition, and we drafted the legislation to make it illegal to smoke indoors. I was on that committee, and
fantastic. Wow.
And so I was on Planned Parenthood. I did, so I was doing something. I was in line to have a life in politics, and, I was going to run for school board. So I had affected a lot of changes in classrooms because, the current methodology in classrooms was hey, let's kind of keep things small and close things. And that's when No Child Left Behind came out. And I saw this movement to let's teach towards the test. And I just thought, the arts kind of went out the window. And I put programs in place so that the arts stayed in the classroom. You need to stimulate a child's mind, not just cram it with rote facts. So that was kind of where I was at. And I just, and everything I tried, it was successful and it was easy. I helped create a program that brought the only internship for psychiatrists on the West Coast. So I, things like that. I helped create an insurance product because I saw that with Hillary Care, then Obamacare, I was you're going to need small companies that are insurance products that are affordable. I had this whole path, and it just didn't feel like I was doing enough. And it felt like I needed to be in a bigger space. And that was the time that I had this moment in my life. My father was a jockey, and he raced in the Kentucky Derby. And he had this amazing legacy, but I didn't know anything about it because he died while my mother was pregnant. So I never met him. Well, my mother did what any 20-year-old would do with 2 kids. She got remarried. And the deal was back then, you get remarried. We don't talk about anything. It's bad luck to talk. So I never knew at all until I was in around 16. And then I kind of uncovered all of this history, but I just kind of tucked it away as you're a kid. this is your reality. This is your family, and you have this allegiance. And like with Italians, like we're all in everybody's business. Like you have no privacy, and like if you've got a drink, like everybody takes a sip, and like you get to the table, like if you don't get a fork in there, you're not going to eat that night because it just is how it is.
And if you don't go for seconds, what's the matter?
Yeah.
I used to go for thirds. My grandmother knew, but if I didn't, she goes, "What's the matter? You don't like the food."
Right. Well, and like to that point, like now they called that food shaming. And I was like, I was food shamed as a kid. Like if you didn't eat, they were like, "You don't love me? Like what did I do? Did I offend you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just not hungry." Like
it's like I used to joke with my grandmother because my grandmother would go, "Manja, manja, Mikey, manja. You're going to be big, stronger like a football player." Yeah. I said, "Grandma, I'm like 4'9". I look like a cigarette machine. I had these wide shoulders. I was just,
Exactly.
She says, baby fat, you burn her off. Manja, eat. And she used to give me not only the bowls of rigatoni and Alfredo, whatever it was, and the
extra gravy,
calamari, prosciutto, everything.
Yeah.
Then pizzelles and the pinoli cookies and cannolis, right? I was like, I'd unzip my pants. I'm sitting on the couch like everybody else. I'm looking at my father. He's like, "Oh, God, I'm full."
Yeah.
But an hour later, we go back to eat again in the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. That was, you go anywhere. Like I was afraid to go to people's houses which I had to because every Sunday we all got together. But like I was afraid because there were 3 bowls in front of me before I sat down. And I was tiny. My father was a jockey. He was 5'2". My mom is 5'11". Like she's the runt of the litter. So
oh my God.
My family's huge. They're like beasts. One of my cousins is like 6'2", and she's a girl.
Now, your daughters and son, are they tall or short?
So my son is 5'11", so he's average height. And then I had a little peanut. She's 5'2". And then I had twins, and the twins, like there's always going to be like some issue. I mean, these girls are like massive, like they're 5'5", they're gorgeous, and they're so talented, and they're just like the apple of my eye. And they tower over me. Wow. And so I am so jealous that they can eat and they can put on a couple pounds and nobody can see it. For me and my peanut, she's like, we have to be really careful because we can't carry the weight. But yeah, like it was definitely like I had this life. My daughter Giovanna, she was a ballerina. She's a classically trained ballerina, and this kid could like play piano by ear. She taught herself at 3. On a book. She got this book and it had a little piano on it, and she taught herself how to play piano. And I was like,
that's incredible.
Yeah, I was like, where did this come from? And she just was this so special kid that she could do anything. Like you would talk to most kids and they're like, I want a candy. And you're like, okay. And she would give me a PowerPoint presentation on why she should have candy in the appropriate amount and that some sugar is healthy for energy.
I love it. Wow.
And at 6. And I was like, okay, you win. But the flip side of that was she couldn't complete things. So I would have to go every Friday to her class, and I would have to clean out her desk and take out all of her assignments that were done well and A+, and turn them in because she couldn't turn them in. So like I've had these 4 personalities that were my whole life and my whole world. And when I left that, I was terrified. And I was like, what's next? Like, how do you leave with 4 kids who are like, I miss my daddy and I want to, like it was terrifying to me. And I didn't know anything else. I got married when I was 19 because my family was like, that's what you do. You get married, you have kids, you have a big family. That's what we do. And suddenly it was all about me. Like I was in this spotlight with 4 kids. And so I did what any newly single mother would do. I called a friend and I was like, I'm terrified. I need to do something. So she came over and she said, look, I can't be with you right now. I'm on a date. And I was like, you need to get rid of him or you need to bring him. But I cannot be alone right now. And she was like, okay. So she came and she knocked on the door and it was Sean.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
It was immediate love at first sight?
I took one look at him and I had a little bit of a some liquid courage because I was frustrated. I just walked out on my husband of almost 20 years because I had found out he cheated. And
sorry.
I'm not sorry for 1 second of it because I met him and he was listening to me and I was like, I need to meet a man who respects women, that can make money, that can, that support them. And he was just like, and we started talking and my friend goes, hey, I'm still here. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And I left. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to see this guy again. Like, wow, like this is so, like I did the right thing. Like it's like I dreamed bigger, I thought bigger. And in this moment, there was this sign, whether I ever saw him again, I was going to have a life and I was going to be okay and my kids were going to be okay. And so I took off the next day and I went to New York and I was by that time I'd already started working. I was directing a commercial. So, 10 days goes by on set, it's crazy. And I call my friend and I'm like, so what happened to that guy? And she goes, oh, forget about him. Like, I'm over it. Like he's, we just kind of were hanging out and like, he's just, it's not going to happen. So don't worry about it. And anyway, he's a jerk. Like, why would he talk to you and talk to me? Like, just forget about it. And I was like, okay. So I come.
You were excited about that, right?
No, I mean, not at all. I was just like, okay, whatever. And I was like, well, I'm calling because I'm coming home. And now the light of day has hit me with this decision that I made very like crazy. And I have to tell my kids now. I have to this is real life. So I'm terrified. And she goes, well, don't do it. Just come over. And I was like, why? And she goes, well, we're day drinking. And I was like, what is that? Day drinking? What do you do? And she's like, you just drink during the day. Like, whatever. You have nothing to do. And I thought, that sounds like a nice escape. Like, I'm going to do that. And she goes, pick up my friend on the way. And I was like, oh, okay. So text me the address. And at the time, I was like, there's an adult man in my car. I don't know him. So, of course, I put on white gloves and a sundress and sunglasses. And I go and I ring the doorbell and Sean answers the door. And he's looking at me in a sundress and white gloves. And he's like, hi, what are you doing here?
You look like Greta Garbo, right?
Totally. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just so I was such a different person because, I was in medicine. So I was very germ phobic. I had kids. Things have to be tight. They have to be organized. I have so many people relying on me. And this was the entree into being a person and having a life so you can give to others. And this really clicked in one day when I was on a flight and I was coming home and my kids were really upset because they're like, you're gone. I'm like, your dad's gone all the time. Like, I'm working. And they're like, but no, you're supposed to be here. And so I was pulled between being super mom and being home and following my dreams. And I didn't want to be that statistic that didn't follow their dreams because I looked at my mom who was so bitter that she could have been this and she could have done that. And yeah, my father passed away when she was, 20. So sure, she got cheated out of it, but she could have gone on and she didn't. She just settled and she was like, well, this is what I got to do. I got kids. I got to do this. And I was like, I don't want to live a life of I have to. I want to live a life of I want to. And I want to have everybody who meets me and knows me does it, and I bring something to their life, and I make their life better, and I bring them along with me. So
now that day, when you had the day drinking,
yeah,
did you feel the attraction, the energy between you and Sean?
We never made it to the day drinking.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. In fact, truth be told, she texted me and she's like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm picking up your friend." And she's like, "What are you talking about? He's already here." And then she texts back, "Shit, wrong Sean. Get rid of him."
Oh, how funny! Oh,
and
my
I'm
God.
like, I feel like that's permission. And so I was like, so I already had him in the car and I was like, hey, are you hungry? Do you want to get some lunch? So I thought, well, I'll take him to lunch, see what happens. And then I can drop him off and it'll be okay. Because he had no idea why I showed up at his door. He literally, imagine I show up in this crazy getup. I ring his doorbell and he's like, what are you doing? Like, hey. So I effectively kidnapped Karate's bad boy. And
He probably said, thank you, God.
Right.
Beautiful Italian woman.
Right.
She was at my door. It's like a dream I had.
right,
You know?
and take him for food. So I'm like, okay, so we're sitting there and we're having lunch and we're talking. And, I was just like, I think we're going to be really good friends because like I see you. I see this on and this guy that you are, but like I see you. And like I see what you're doing. I see like you're a beautiful person and you're caught up in a bunch of bullshit that you need to separate yourself from and get focused on where you're supposed to do. And he's like, I just need the chance. And I said, well, we're going to be friends and I'm going to give you that chance to be who you're supposed to, who I see you are. And he was like, okay. And then I said, oh man, I got to go because I'm supposed to go to this party. And he goes, well, where is it? And I said, I don't know. She's supposed to text me the address. And he goes, yeah, that's what I thought. And I was like, what? And he said, you don't strike me as the kind of girl who goes somewhere where you're not wanted. And if you don't have the address already, you're not really wanted there. And I was like, and I was like, okay. So he's like, hey, you got to take me home. You should check out my house. And I was like, like, what do you do in this situation? So I was a little nervous about it, but he's like, no. Listen, I've got this 5-story house. Like you'll love it. It's your taste. Like you'll really love it. And I was like, okay. So he gives me the full tour of 5 stories. And on the 5th story is his bedroom. And I was like, okay, I'm out of breath here. Like, so he goes, why don't you sit down and have a break, like just hang out for a little bit. And I ended up staying for 11 days. And because my kids were with their dad and I was like, okay, we could just put this off. And so while I'm there, all of a sudden I'm like Googling one night stand. I didn't know what to do. Like I'd never dated. I got married when I was 19. And I'm like, okay, so like, what do you do? Do you sneak out? And so I was like, oh, well, and I kept trying to leave. And he's like, hold on, I made chicken parm. And I was like, what?
To the Italian woman, chicken parm?
Yeah. And I was
That's
like,
a love potion, right?
Right. I was like, okay, either he's a serial killer and he's going to murder me, or like I'm literally like I'm done. Like I'm smitten. Like
well, if he was a killer, at least you had a good last meal.
Exactly. Right? I was like, either way, I'm good with it. Like either way, like this is like if you talk about heaven, I think this is the idea. And like in that moment, the whole time I kept thinking, like I don't feel out of place. I don't feel alone. I don't feel like I have to censor myself or I have to like talk about things that in a certain way, or he literally, I would start talking and he'd go, oh my God, I know, totally. And he would tell me something else. Not exactly like that. He's a lot cooler sounding, but he, like we just clicked, like you get the references and and he's a closet Italian. Like he grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. And like when we got married, his parents came to our wedding. We got married in Italy, and they came, and I told his mom, Sean's going to convert. And she's like, what? What do you mean? And I said, well, he's going to be Italian now. And she's like, oh, okay.
Okay, I got to ask you, who's a better cook, Sean or you?
Sean, yeah. I mean, he thinks I am, but like Sean literally can look in the refrigerator and there can be like a rubber band, a popsicle stick, and toothpicks, and he comes out with some amazing meal that's just like stunning. And like, don't get me started on his salads. Like a salad for Italians, it's like lettuce and some dressing and maybe some tomatoes and some onions. Like that's a salad. Sean comes out with there's like tuna and chickpeas and like things that you wouldn't normally, and it's bananas.
My father was the same way. We go to a restaurant, he orders a salad.
Right.
So the waitress bring out the salad. He goes, that's it? Mm-hmm. I want a happy salad. Where's the peppers? Where's the cucumbers? Where's the tomatoes? Where's the avocado? Yeah, and he sent it back.
Yeah.
They said, now see, Mike, that's a happy salad.
Yeah.
But here's a guy who knew nothing about nutrition. Mm-hmm. But because Arnold used to say to me, lettuce is rabbit food.
Right.
But if you add all those other vegetables, now it's hearty and you've got all the fiber and the minerals you're getting from these vegetables. So my father, not knowing anything, actually was the smartest thing to do is have a happy salad.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. We have a lot of those in our
Well, it
home.
sounds like he's Italian now, you know.
He literally, I have rubbed off on him and he's rubbed off on me. And it's really great to be in this team. And for my 50th birthday, he got me a star on the Walk of Fame in Palm Springs.
Oh, wow.
And right next to the Maryland. And I just thought, like,
That's beautiful.
it was so amazing. And I was like, you know, my speech was basically saying, like, coming from a family where, you know, Italian families, like, you got to be real loud to get a word in edgewise. And if you're a girl and you pipe up, you better have something real important to say. Otherwise, like, it's not going to go well. And I was like, you know, I just really wanted to have a voice for all the little girls who, you know, think that, like, it's better to keep quiet. It's better to, you know, be a good soldier, to be a good girl and, like, you know, do what you're told. Sometimes you have to do what you're told in here and in here than just what everyone around you is seeing. Like,
Well, it just shows you that the universe brought two beautiful people together at a time when they both needed each other.
Exactly. And that's all about timing. And, you know, during COVID, it was a weird experience because I have a lot of a family in Italy. I have friends in Italy, and, like, it got hit really hard in Italy. And we were hearing how, like, the body count was high, and we were scared because, you know, I'm Italian. So I was like, am I going to get it? Am I going to, you know, what's going to happen? And so we really, really reevaluated our life. And at that time, Sean was drinking a lot, and as was everybody. And it got to this weird place. And I did a lot of soul searching because, you know, aside from Sean, I had 5 kids orbiting me. So, like, if we went down, like, what's going to happen to them? So I'm just very responsible, and very much I wanted to make sure everything was okay. And so I started to kind of look at things and say, Sean, that's when, you know, he had just turned 50, and he, you know, it's a weird time in anybody's life, but especially men. They get this, like, you know, kind of midlife crisis because, you know, men are about having a legacy. You know, the man's last name carries on, the woman's doesn't. It's a footnote. And so men carry a lot on their shoulders. They carry the world on their shoulders, and they especially carry their wife, their kids, and, you know, their wife's heart on their shoulders. They carry it. And so at some point, there's this thought that, like, men need to, A, be appreciated for carrying that, and B, they also need to be given permission to set it down from time to time. And, you know, that's one thing that Sean, like, he carries, like, his shoulders are massive and he carries a lot. And so I tried to be that partner for him. And he always said he didn't want a girl, he didn't want a girlfriend, he wanted a partner. And so I was a partner to him, and in every way, I held him accountable, and I reminded him, like, you've got this burden. And on the other hand, I would say, but I'm proud of you for carrying it. And thank you for carrying it, because I also have a purse that I keep stuff in, and I carry it all for you. So even though you're like, forward facing, taking all the hits, I've got all the Band-Aids here, and I'm going to patch you up.
You know, you remind me so much of my mother. My mother loved and adored my father.
Yeah.
And
that's how it's
he
supposed to
said, your mother works harder than me and any man I know. Taking
Sean
care of
says-
the family, 3 kids. She does the books for the business,
Yep.
puts food on the table,
Yep.
puts clothes on your back. And sure enough, he said, she's going to outlive me. And she did.
Yeah.
She lived to 94.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. Like, that's something that I so firmly believe in, that, you know, after Sean, like, we had the discussion, he said that, you know, I said to him, like, please don't tell me I backed the wrong horse, because I'm all in here. And that was a hard moment for me to say to him, because I never wanted him to feel like I had anything except such massive like, gratitude and belief in him. And, you know, for me, the whole purpose of being in a relationship is to be a safe harbor and to be your biggest fan. Like, no one wants to come home. Like, I remember seeing, like, my uncles and my aunts and, like, my family, they would come home and they would just, like, na 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 na, it would just start. And, you know, I don't think that that's healthy. I think that you have to have this world and this family and this unit where like you shut everything out. And like I was saying before, like it clicked, all this stuff kind of clicked together for me. I was on a flight and I was just like, we were about to take off and I was just like ruined and crying because my kids had just called me and they're like, are you going to come home? I miss you. I want to. And I was like, how am I doing this? Like, I'm a mom. I need to stop doing this career stuff and just be home with them because they're not going to be little forever. And the lady, the flight attendant was doing the, buckle your seatbelt. And then she's like, if the oxygen mask drops, put your mask on yourself first and then help your child or your partner or whatever. And I was like, why would you want your kid to die? Like, of course you put the mask on the kid first. They can't help themselves. Like, why would you let them die? And like the whole flight, that's what stuck in my head. And I sat there and I was like, this is just silly. Like, why do they even say this? Like, who, it must be somebody. And I was so mad. And by the end of the flight, I was like, if you can't breathe, your kid's going to watch you die. And it clicked. And I was like, I have to do something to feed me, to feed them. Otherwise, they're going to watch me die. And when I talked to Sean about that, he goes, yeah, you didn't know that? And I was like, and he was like, it's okay. I'm your partner. I'm here to help you just as much as you help me. And I was like, but you're my hero. Like, why would you have to like help me? Like, I have to like run to be good enough to stay here. And he was like, you're here. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And you have that moment in your relationship. And I was like, okay, this is my guy. Like, this is it. We're together. And that happened like maybe day number 10 of the original kidnapping. Like he really knew, like right in that moment, like we got in and we got heavy, like right away. Like we talked about everything. There was nothing, there was no open. And like one of the big things that was like the pit in my stomach was, does he remember that I have 4 kids? Like, it's one thing to meet this hot girl and like, she's great. And now she's singing everything right. And then it's like, oh, by the way, I have 4 teenagers. Like, hey. And, my ex is, a doctor, so he never takes them. They're always with me. And he was like, yeah, I remembered. And I just went, oh.
Well, that says a lot about Sean,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you were being transparent.
Yeah.
And hey, look how many times people have said one-night stands never work.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not true to have that
Yeah.
mindset, and look where you are today, 15 years together.
Exactly.
And you're both in the entertainment industry.
Exactly.
That is a huge accomplishment. You should have another star on the bar.
Well, yeah. Well, we're actually, after, all of the COVID things, Sean wrote the book, The Way of the Cobra, and it was basically about his journey through that and getting sober and getting focused. And the book is about do something. It doesn't matter what you do, just do something. Don't take up space on the planet. You need to do something.
I definitely have to read that.
It's amazing. It's an amazing book, and it was great. So he's writing, and like, when you tell Sean do something, like he's got 2 speeds. He's like, either I'm doing it or I'm not. And so he literally was like typing all these things, and he does like the 1 peck on the thing.
I'm that way too.
And it was amazing. But I was hearing him. It was like a woodpecker, and I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden, he starts giving me these pages, and I'm like, this is really good. This is really great information. It's not earth shattering, but the way he's telling it is connective, because you can like get told a million times. But like you said about your mom, like anybody could tell you, the kids at school were probably saying, oh, you're chubby, like whatever. But your mom, she was the one that hit you and reaches you right here. Like, you need that person to tell you the message. And Sean, like, he told the message and he hit. Like, he was the one. He just was so inspiring about it. It wasn't like, hey, I'm this good guy. Look at me. I'm in Hollywood. I have all this money. I can do all these things. It wasn't. It was, hey, if I can do it, I'm a small town kid from Pennsylvania. If I can do it, anybody can. It's just, this is how you do it. These are the steps, instead of like, hey, I did this and now here it is. He literally broke it down granularly, and it hit. And it was like, during COVID, we were working, we were selling books, like we were filling orders. It was amazing. And so when I heard about everybody else and I compared, what we were doing. And not to mention, like, I was locked in with a professional entertainer who does stand-up comedy. Like, it was literally my best life at the moment. Like, we finished Netflix after the first week, and it was like the 40-year-old sleepover. Like, we, made fort houses and stuff like that. And I was like, this man is my whole life. Like, he's connected to me in ways that, like, nobody ever did. Like, when I was a kid, I was the oldest girl, so I babysat everybody. So everybody had all their little fun and did things, but I was always in charge, so I had to babysit. So I never got to be a kid. I never got to play. I never got to do things, and he did it. And in turn, I took him to prom. So, like, we've done these things where we're just like two kids trying to figure it out through the world. And, like, that's what drives our relationship, is that we have this young mindset of we still have more to do. We still have places to go. We still have things to accomplish. And when we hear people that tell us, like, you're like, I get it. Like, I heard your story. Like, just today, sorry, I look a little crazy, but, like, I was in tears this morning because somebody called me and said, hey, listen, I read Sean's book, and I want to tell you, I had such a hard time. COVID was so hard for me, but reading his book, he snapped me out of it. He goes, I lost 50 pounds. I started a business. He goes, it was my dream to start this business, but I was a knucklehead, and I kept, like, bouncing around. I couldn't get anything started. And he's like, I'm a musician. And so, like, my parents looked at me like I was a deadbeat. And he's like, but reading Sean's book, like, it's inspiring because he was an entertainer, and, like, it's a hard life. You don't just like, hi, I'm here for a job. Like, you put in so much work and you don't get paid for it. So he just, like, he was like, you guys, like, I'm just so inspired. I want, like, sign me up. I'm on the team.
That's a beautiful story. Well, what we'll have to do is, when you come back, I want you and Sean together.
Yeah.
Because I want them to see the energy between you two.
Yeah.
It's magical, seriously. When I saw you sitting on the couch, when I first came in, it was incredible, the energy between you two.
Well, we are putting it in a book. So
I look forward to reading that book.
This book is called Cobra Couples. And
wow.
Yeah, so it should be out soon. And we again, we're brutally honest in it. And we tell some stories that, like, they're rough, but, like, we tell them so that people can see that we're real people. Yeah. Like, what you see is what you get. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and so does Sean. And so we hold hands to make sure it doesn't slip off. But we really care about people, and we want to see people have what we have. We really hope for it. And so our hope is to put this out and to get couples really in tune with one another, to learn this message that, it's you have a better life when you're with somebody, when you can share it with. And Sean told me this story, which kind of sparked us. He said he watched For Love of the Game, and I'd never seen it. It's like a sports movie. I'm like, okay. And I come in and see him, and he's, like, all teared up. And I was just like, what is going on? Like what? And he goes, it just gets me every time because I just can't. Like, here he hits this no run game, perfect game. And he goes back to his hotel room, and he's there by himself. And, like, the girl that he, kind of pushed aside, she's watching from an airport, and, like, he calls her, and she's like, yeah, it's okay, great, thanks. And he's just like, I can't. So I love that about him. Like, he's right. You do need a witness to your life, and being in a couple, it's your magnetic north. We all get lost in thought experiments, and we get in our head, but like, you're with your parents, and we all love our parents. We all love our mother because they know us better than anybody. But after you're with somebody, you're with them longer than your parents, and your parents know a version of you that they sculpted and molded and gave you their values, and they have their own bias. Like, I have my own thoughts about my own kids. Like, my personality archetype for them is different than who they are. But, I know them since they were little, but they've changed and they matured. When you have a partner, they get to see your hopes and dreams, and who you are and who you want to be and where you're going and how much you're willing to give up to get there. And that's what when you have a relationship and you start a relationship, we have what's called the relationship rule book. Like, you sit down and you give them, and the other thing is our origin story. You give them your origin story, and they give you their origin story, and you combine to create your relationship rule book. And in that, like, we have a rule: we don't go to Vegas alone. There's no girl weekends to Vegas. There's no boys' night out. Like, we don't do that. Not because we can't. Like, sure, I trust him. Like, he could, do whatever he wanted. Like, he's on daytime. Like, come on. So, but we just don't, because I'd rather be with him. Like, I've done things that I've been without him, and I'm on the phone with him the whole time. And, he has this friend who lives in Staten Island, and he's a tough guy, and he's got that Staten Island accent, and he's a funny guy. And so he kept telling us, come over, come stay with me. So finally, after like 5 years, we're like, all right, we're going to go stay with this guy. And he's like, oh, here. And I'm like, so what is this? And he's like, oh, I made up the couches for you. And I was like, wait, why did you invite us to stay? We could have got a hotel. You're going to have us sleep on the couch? And he's like, how are we going to be? And he goes, well, there's 2 couches, so you could both sleep. And I was like,
oh my God.
It's like midnight. And I'm like, okay, let's just do this. And he's Italian too. So I'm like, all right, whatever. Let's just do that. So he starts making fun of us the next day. He goes, I came down for coffee in the morning, and I see you two, you're asleep and you're holding hands.
Oh, that's adorable. Oh my God.
And I was like, and you think that's like funny or silly? And he's like, don't you guys get enough of each other? And I was like, no, I don't. He's my best friend. Like, he's my whole world. Why would I not? And I said, we hold hands. Like, when I sleep, I put my foot on him because I want to make sure he's still there.
When your book is going to be released, let me know. We'll do a lot of promos, and we'll show clips of this interview so people can really know where to get it.
Yep.
And know that it's out there.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for coming on today.
Yeah.
It was a great learning experience, and thanks for sharing your stories.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's Mike Torsha. Thank you for watching. If you have someone you truly care about, share this episode, because this touching interview will probably inspire you to make so many different choices in your life and hopefully be happy. Thanks for watching, and please remember, subscribe. We need your support. Thank you.